This is Pixelated Audio, and you're listening to 5 years of VGMRips. This is Pixelated Audio, a bi-weekly video game music and retro gaming podcast. I'm Bryan, this is James, and today we're doing a special celebratory episode jam-packed with a ton of amazing VGMs.
Oh yeah, and if you're familiar with our show, you've probably heard us mention VGMRips.net, usually towards the ends of our show.
Right.
This site and the community have made a huge impact on how game audio fans listen to music today, and towards the end of this month actually is their 5-year anniversary.
Yeah, a lot of the music we listen to wouldn't have been possible without this dedicated group that truly loves sharing music, you know, stuff that might have been lost or forgotten.
Yeah.
And we're very proud to be a part of this act of preservation.
So in this episode, what we've done is we've asked VGMRips staff and friends to submit tracks that they love and tell us why they love them.
Yeah, it makes me really happy to be able to kind of collaborate with other people around the world, you know, different backgrounds, ethnicities, different languages on something that we all share as like a common interest.
Yeah, and one of the really cool things is that we all live in different regions that got different games or different changes to games, so it's interesting to see it from different perspectives.
Yeah, but isn't it, I mean, it's so cool to me, you know, like everybody says music is universal, and that's true, and it's also true for video game music, and, you know, being able to collaborate and exchange words with people that have a similar interest, a similar love, a similar passion is just incredible. It's super special.
Yeah. All right. So I'm really excited to get this episode rolling. So we're going to start off with you, Bryan. And why'd you pick this track?
Yeah, so that was my submission, and it's titled Battle Theme Number 1 from a game called Tsunyan Jaayao, released in 1994 for the PC 9801 by Studio Milk. And that was composed by Takeshi. And the reason why I picked this track was because and I wanted to play this track forever on this show.
Yeah, I remember.
I was just trying to think of a good excuse. And this is a great one because this track I would not have found had it not been for the website. It was pure discovery. I was doing work. I was just working. I was in the office listening to stuff on random, and I came across this track, and it really made my ears perk up. It's got this really ghostly, kind of mysterious lead that's kind of a little bit buried under some of the other instruments, and I was blown away. It just got me interested in learning more about the composer, and I started doing my own research, and really it was just, I would not have found this had it not been for VGMRips. So it was something that I was very grateful to be able to learn more about. And this composer is really interesting. He was employed by a company called Kid around 1990, and then he joined up with a company called 5PB, which is 5 Powered and Basics. And he's done a bunch of other soundtracks that I really dig. There's Starfire, which is also on VGMRips, you can check out. And, Memories Off series, Chaos Child, Steins Gate, and a bunch of other visual novel romances. But I just thought the track was great. I really liked it, and it's a funny story. We do this little thing in the IRC channel in VGMRips where it's called VGM Roulette. I don't know where that name came from, but it's basically like that. We put in a random query to play any kind of pack that was submitted, and we'll listen to it kind of all together and put in our ratings, how many stars 1 out of 5. And then we'll refresh the page all together and see what everybody gave it. But this track, actually, or this game, was in our last VGM roulette, and I was thinking to myself, dope, I'm gonna play that on the show next. So yeah, well, anyways, I'm really glad that I could finally play this for you guys.
Yeah.
What'd you think about the track?
I really liked it. I remember when you first sent me this game to check out, and I was like, oh, wow, this is really cool. I think it was back when we were looking into doing a PC98 game, and we had a few like on our radar, and we ended up selecting Ground Seed, but
which was a good choice.
Yeah. So, I mean, we love the PC98. But yeah, this track is fast paced. It definitely has that battle feel. It's just very cool.
Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and get into our first submission. This is a track that was picked by MaliceX. So let's check that out.
G'day everyone, this is MaliceX, also known as DJ2B, and you just listened to Tower of the Destiny by Ryu Takami. This was from a Japanese DOS game called Rusty. Most of the soundtrack was actually composed by Masahiro Kajihara, or Kaja, and Kenichi Arakawa. This one being Ryu Takami's only contribution to the game. Now, Rusty was made originally for the PC98, but what you've heard is actually from the PC-DOS version, which incidentally does not use the OPN FM chip series, but instead it uses the OPL FM chip series, or the YM3812. Some of you with Sound Blaster 16s are more familiar with the YMF262. Now, and the reason I chose this track was because it was one of those examples which I thought, well, it's OPL. Most people associate OPL with game soundtracks like Doom, Warcraft, Tyrion, Solar Winds, Jewel of the Jungle, etc. But not many people actually heard game developers from Asia, particularly from Japan, Korea, and China, making awesome soundtracks that use the OPL chip. Now, and just a bit of trivia, with Rusty, it was originally released for the PC98 platform, which also used the OPN family of FM chips. Their sound quality is more closer to that of the Sega Mega Drive or some various arcade games, particularly from the CPS-1. But with the PC-DOS version, the OPL version, there is some distinctive differences between the tone used between versions of the game. But more specifically, both versions made use of an audio driver for sound effects and music. Kaja himself programmed it. It was called Professional Music Driver, or PMD for short. It's basically like a DOS TSR that runs in the background while the game's running, and it actually generates audio using the FM chips, which are compiled from what was originally written as MML text or macro music language programs that get turned into listenable audio. So enough about that. Just a little bit about my experience with VGMRips. I joined around 2013 after stumbling across it by accident on Project 2612 while I was looking for a soundtrack I wanted to download. Now, as I understand, that's now a sister site. But in the process, I learned that the crew at VGMRips, particularly Valley Bell, took it on themselves to expand the VGM music format originally developed by Maxim in SMS Power. And it was quite interesting to see, from what I knew as a chiptune sound logging format for the Sega Master System, Game Gear, Mega Drive, and I think the CPS-1. What was interesting to see is over time, once Valley Bell took over maintaining the format, it's sort of grown into like a mini general purpose music archiving format for, because now instead of just those consoles, it now supports basically any commonly known sound chip that makes use of FM, particularly those from arcade machine boards and many computer systems such as the PC-9, as I mentioned earlier. And it's pretty cool. It was pretty cool to learn that VGMRips as a site also had this mission of archiving various game soundtracks that aren't already being archived in other sites on the web. And I thought to myself, it would be nice to share some awesome music from various video games most people have probably never heard of. I grew up with video game music. I also do a bit of my own music making myself, but with my obsession of video game music in general, particularly those from obscure games, I thought this was a pretty good opportunity to sort of share to the world what type of music is out there, other than the really super popular soundtracks that most people already know and love. Alright then, well, thanks for listening, listeners. Happy birthday, VGMRips. You are listening to Pixelated Audio.
Alright, that was from MaliceX. Oh man, what a great track.
Yeah, what a great track. Rusty is such a great game too.
Yeah, and the fact that this was the only contribution by Ryu Takami is also pretty awesome. I'm curious because he could have picked any other track, and this soundtrack is phenomenal, but he chose to solo this one out, and that's pretty awesome. I did really like it. It's very chaotic.
Yeah, no, I like his dedication to pick a track from a game that was not widely heard of, and it's a track that was not made by the main composer of it, so
right.
which was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's very frantic and menacing and urgent. I love how there's the part that's very repetitious, and it allows the rest of the track to kind of bring the variety. It had that kind of like alarm, like something bad is happening feel.
Right. I like how he touched on the PMD and stuff by Kajihara. We had just done the whole Chasers episode where he explained a lot of that for us, and it was just well said, I think. Very well put. Anyways, so thank you very much, MaliceX. Let's get into our next track. This is from Crimson 1117.
Hey, I'm Crimson1117 of VGMRips, and that track was Nitro Grauw from Minna Mamotte Nitro, composed by Hisayoshi Ogura, FM version arranged by Win. I've been in Japan for 3 months and have a part-time job in Namco, and since Japanese law is annoying, so I have to not upload things these days. By the way, I'm a Chinese. Thanks for listening to this annoying bad voices. So please enjoy the music.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Crimson1117. Man, this was a really strange track.
Yeah, strange but cool. I liked how it starts out very kind of cute and weird, and then that bass line comes in and it's super heavy and bouncy, and then right after that I was just like, wow, like this track really takes off, and there's so much variety and like a very like a organized chaos.
Yeah, so this was a track it's kind of unique, I think, for the show, because this is from a game called Minna de Mamotte Night, which roughly translates to Protect Me Night, and it was for the 3DS. And so at first I was like, well, this is like totally off base. This doesn't sound right. This is like FM, right? And this was actually a track called Retro Nitro Girl that's an FM version.
Oh, okay.
It's a rearrangement, and it was rearranged by a gentleman named Wing. And it's really cool because it's using the OPN hardware. So I was thinking to myself, this is pretty cool. This is an FM arranged version, originally composed by Hisayoshi Ogura from Taito, like really popular in Zuntata and all their stuff. And it makes sense because the track to me sounds really much like an old Zuntata band kind of track. I loved it. I thought it was rad.
Yeah, no, it's a great track. I really liked it. It was, like you said, very different, fun, and it was just something that like we wouldn't have come across maybe.
Nope. And it was developed and published by Ancient, which is Yuzo Koshiro's company. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes me want to play this game.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. It's kind of like I think it's kind of like a strategy, kind of action RPG kind of thing. I don't know. But anyways, really cool. Thank you very much, Crimson. Appreciate the submission. Are you ready to get into our next track?
Yep.
All right. What do we got?
Next, we have a submission from CTR, which you might remember from our Quattro Play episode.
Awesome. right, the track was called BGM3, and it was from Racing Hero, which is an arcade game on Sega's X board. And this was composed by Hikoshi Hashimoto. And this is using the YM2151 and the Sega PCM. And CTR was busy and he didn't have time to get us a testimonial, so what he wanted to say was, I joined VGMRips sometime in 2013. Since then, I've contributed packs and worked on VGM players and tools. Although nowadays I mostly lurk around in IRC and forums and try to keep the site active by helping other people create their own VGMRips. I also reverse engineer sound drivers for fun, the result of which I have demonstrated earlier on this show. I thank everybody who has kept the site active for the last 5 years and hope for 5 more years. I picked this track because it was my first VGM pack.
That's awesome that this pack has a special place for CTR.
Yeah, another racing track. This guy likes racing games. He really likes racing game music.
It's not a quattro play track, but it's an amazing track. I thought it was very cool. I love the long notes. I loved the funky beat that comes in. It's very heroic, and I can just imagine this being a really cool track to race around to.
Right. It's like you were saying, it's very funky, but it's got this calming element to it. I think the kind of twinkly notion, whatever that is in the background, just sounds cool, man. Awesome little racing track. Anyways, CTR, thank you so much for your submission. Can't wait to do our next Quattro Play episode.
Yeah.
Anyways, our next track, what do we got, James?
We have a submission from MusicFox.
Hello everybody, this is MusicFox here, bringing you the first song I remember hearing on the Adlib FM synthesizer chip, also known as the YM3812. That was the character generation music from Eye of the Beholder for MS-DOS. I only remember hearing this song once back in my childhood. Several years later, I finally got to listen to it again and rip it into VGM. I got into VGM ripping back in 2014, and I was taught VGM ripping by Dissident93. I believe my first rip was Jeopardy for the Sega Genesis, or I guess people mainly recognize that game's music from the unlicensed Genesis game Super Mario World 64. Why did I pick that game as my first rip? Well, I've always been interested in the obscure/unknown games. For those interested, my favorite game of all time is the NES version of Pool of Radiance. It was the first game I ever played. The music you hear in the background is from that game, and is the theme for New Flan. Sorry, but I had to squeeze in this song as well. Besides VGM ripping, I am also a music transcriber, in which I make professionally made sheet music for songs. With the VGM format, you can both mute channels and there's software to convert them to MIDI files, which makes it easier for me to transcribe them. Aside from that, I'd say my favorite things about VGM ripping is that 1. The format can be played on most portable devices, 2. The format isn't dead like a lot of machine code music rips such as NSF, GBS, and PSF formats. The third thing I like about the VGM format is that it's easier to rip songs. You don't have to be a programmer and rip the music from the game's code. You just log the file in-game, trim it accordingly, and you're done. This probably explains why the VGM format is starting to be the most popular game music format. Besides VGM logging, my other favorite hobbies include playing guitar, keyboards, and transcribing/engraving music. My favorite music artists include Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Chicago, Steely Dan, and Sting. As a Seattleite, I also like any grunge bands such as Alice in Chains, Nirvana, and Pearl Jam. One important thing I've learned to do over the years is listen to as many genres of music as I can. Don't just listen to rock or jazz or rap. Don't just stick to one genre. Expand your horizons and listen to as many genres as you can, because you are bound to find something you love. One more thing before I go. I know you guys haven't seen a rip from me in a while, but I want to let you know that I haven't quit VGM ripping. Just taking a break is all. I started working at my first job back in July, and I haven't had a lot of time to myself. I'm sure most of you can relate. And on my days off, I like to get out of the house and go places. Finally, I'd like to give a shout out to Valley Bell, CTR, and Dissident 93. I'd also like to thank BMOS for including me in his podcast. Thanks for listening. MusicFox out. God bless, and I'll see you all later in a VGM rip near you.
All right, thank you, MusicFox. That was an awesome track. That was I had the Beholder for the IBM PC on the YM3812 OPL, composed by Paul Mudra, and I thought that was an excellent track. A little bit dreary, a little dreamy in the beginning,
Right.
but to me, I want to say this sounds a lot. It reminds me of Final Fantasy VII. When you're in the Midgar area,
Yeah.
or maybe it's like Sector 7, Sector 9, whatever that is.
Something like that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
But I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it starts off really slow, and at first I'm like, "What is this? The whole track?" And then when the like magical part happens, it's a pretty awesome track.
Yeah, I liked how right in the very beginning, just a few notes really set the whole tone for what this song is going to feel like. It's kind of dreary, dark feeling, but mellow. It's not like a battle or anything like that. It doesn't feel like that. It definitely feels like some type of like kind of dark town or
right.
something like that. I liked it though. It was neat.
Something like character generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, thank you very much, MusicFox. Let's move on to our next track. This is from 2CHH. So let's check it out.
Once again, that submission was from 2CHH. The track was Submerged City Stage 1 from Dragon Saber on the Namco System 2, composed by Shinji Hosoe using the YM2151.
Yeah, and it was actually coupled with the C140, if I remember correctly. This track is incredible, man.
Yeah.
Good God, it sounds like an 80s workout video.
Yeah, I could see that. To me, it felt like the very beginning of the track, it felt like anything was possible. It felt like I didn't know where it was going to go, and it could go in so many different directions. And then it picks up, and it's like, I can feel the wind in my hair, and like it's going to be this epic adventure, and that, just like so magical feeling, I guess.
Yeah, this soundtrack is incredible.
Yeah.
And I think CTR, we'd asked him if, what his favorite Shinji Hosoe track was, and he's like, oh, it's definitely Dragon Saber.
Yeah,
so,
he didn't even have to think about it.
Yeah, so no, that was just an excellent track. The whole soundtrack is, God, so damn well composed.
Yeah.
So 2CHH, he didn't have a testimonial for us to play, but he did have some words to say about the track. He says, I was surprised to listen to the OST of Dragon Saber from Namco and Galactic Storm from Taito because the sound quality was just amazing. He says, the first stage needs to be attractive to people's hearts, and I think Submerged City plays its part. Listening to the song makes it so much more fun. The first pack I submitted in VGMRips was Columns 2. The reason for submitting this was because the Desert Sun loop was interesting. Although the scale is going up, it's interesting to change from high to low note in the middle of that loop. And for VGMRips, he says, I'm glad to be able to listen to the music of various different hardware. Really cool. Thank you so much for your submission. Again, I think this track was just a wonderful pick. I'm glad we got to play this on the show. So let's move on to our next submission here. This one is from Grauw, and it's an awesome track, so let's check it out.
Hey, I'm Grauw of VGMRips, and that track was BGM 1-1 from Quarth by Konami, composed by Uehara, Mano, Takenouchi, and Tomita-san. When Bryan asked me to send in a track for the VGMRips anniversary, for me this had to be one for Konami's SEC. The SEC was a custom sound chip Konami developed for their later MSX games, which added 5 waveform channels to the standard 3 PSG channels. Architecturally quite unlike the PSG and FM chips common at the time, the SEC had programmable waveforms which let it produce warm leads, windy flutes and fat basses. Combine this with the wonderful composing of Konami's musicians, you get one of the most characteristic and loved sound chips for the MSX. Quarth was one of the last games Konami released for MSX, and being a Tetris meets Space Invaders type of game, it was a bit of an odd duck among other big titles like Metal Gear Solid Snake and SD Snatcher. However, even though I absolutely loved those games, I've probably played Quarth the most. It's really fun and addictive. That feeling of getting those large combos out of the way just in time. Some interesting fact about this track is that it's actually an MSX original. Where the other systems had just a few background tracks, the MSX version let you pick from 4 sets of them, each getting more intense as the stage progresses. Really nice of Konami to put in that extra effort. Anyway, happy birthday VGMRips! I first discovered this lovely community about 2 years ago and spent days listening to all those different tracks. The VGM sound format piqued my interest because as a coder with an MSX background and a fondness of sound chips, it seemed to me that it should actually be possible to play many of these tracks back on real sound chips on the MSX. So this became my new project, VGM Play for MSX, and it was pretty well received. The basis was finished pretty quickly, after which one by one I added support for all the sound chips available for MSX, which are quite a few. Of course the AY3 and SCC, but also the OPLL, OPL4, OPM, SN76489 and even the SID. But coding aside, the part I really enjoyed most about this project is that it got me in touch with a lot of wonderful people. Some contributing code, some creating sound hardware, some ripping music, and some making retro chip music podcasts.
Thank you, Grauw. That's awesome to hear kind of your reason for picking this track, and it was a really fun track. I love this one.
Oh yeah, me too. The really bouncy, punchy sound to it was really cool. I even liked how it had a very sharp sound to it, kind of not really crunchy, but everything was very punchy, and I really liked that.
Yeah, well, I think he said it perfectly. You know, it's got a very buzzing, warm bass, kind of warm melody, and that SCC is just, man, it's to die for on the MSX. When we did the Nightmare episode, just I listened to that SCC version so many times, and I just couldn't get it out of my head. And this was a really great track, and I'm glad he was able to share it with us. So very cool. So let's move on to our next track. This is from Maxim, and we'll be right back. You just heard Building 1 from GG Shinobi 2, or Shinobi 2 The Silent Fury on the Game Gear. And this was composed by Yuzo Koshiro and developed and published by Sega. What a totally rockin' little track, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I really liked it. Galloping, awesome scales, just super clean.
Got a little bit of Mizutani kind of flair in there, too. Yeah, so excellent pick. I mean, I'm loving this episode. We're getting to hear all sorts of stuff that I just wouldn't have thought of, popping in the show. So this is excellent. Now, he wasn't able to get us a audio clip, but he did write us a nice little reasoning behind, his background of VGM.
Right. He said, I got into emulation and coding at about the same time, 1998-ish, mainly for the Master System because my computer was a bit slow for the Mega Drive, and it was my first and only at the time game machine. And free games were great. And at the time that VGM or its predecessor was being invented, I had time on my hands, so I thought, why not? It's fun to work on a project with other people. I only really had a mild interest in video game music at the time, but I guess I'm way more into it than most people.
I guess so.
I dallied with the YM2413 and the YM2612 stuff, but got short on time, so it's good that Valley Bell was able to take on the project and add in support for so many more chips and systems. I don't listen to VGMs much now, but they're really my go-to for coding with headphones on. Square waves make you think like a computer.
That's awesome. Maxim he's kind of the guy who started this all, right? Kind of got everybody's interest going, and then Valley Bell is the one that really kind of took over and started just implementing so many more chips and stuff. And I'm really glad that this idea and this format came to fruition, because otherwise we might be using some archaic formats and just not be able to listen to it the way we should. So.
Well, and it would just make things so much harder and more taxing and time consuming.
Yeah. Did you ever play this game?
No, I didn't get to play a ton of games on the Game Gear.
Even though you had just the one. It's because you ran out of so many batteries.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had maybe 4 or 5 games for this thing. So
yeah, I really liked it. I thought this was an excellent version of Shinobi. It plays really well. It's a great little platformer. You only got the 2 buttons, and so being able to just run, jump, and slash people is all you can do, and that makes for a perfect Shinobi game. Very cool track though. This takes place in the very first level. You're inside this kind of warehouse, and I was rocking out, man. I was playing it the other day.
Yeah, no, I mean, this track was just amazing. And I think that's the thing for me is I've been coming across some Game Gear stuff that I missed as a kid, and I'm just blown myself away with it. It's just like I can't wait to try out more. I mean, I had this idea in my head as a kid that Game Gears were terrible, and it made me not want to buy a handheld for a really long time.
Kind of turned you off to it. Yeah, I think I was kind of in the same boat. I played games, and the ones I did I liked, but I was kind of turned off by the fact that I was a little kid and didn't have, batteries, just flowing out of my ears. And so this is a really cool way for us to kind of experience stuff that we missed. So anyways, let's move on to our next submission. This one is from Org866.
Hey, I'm Org866 of VGMRips, and that track was Sorti from the game Gauntlet 4 on the Sega Mega Drive, aka Sega Genesis in North America. The game was scored by Hitoshi Sakimoto and Masahiro Iwata, who are both very well-known musicians, video game musicians, and they have been working together for the last 28 years or so, and the quality of the work is just amazing. I mean, here they are starting video game compositions together in 1988, and in 1993 they made this masterpiece, and I mean it really is a masterpiece. Gauntlet 4's soundtrack is amazing. I could have chosen any track from that game. He did make a few other games on the Mega Drive, but the reason why I chose this track in particular is because I'm not really sure how to describe it. This is one of the tracks I heard when I played this game for the first time. Okay, first of all, it's a very good game. It's very, very well engineered from an engineering coding standpoint, but also this track is, in my opinion, the best non-PCM track ever written on the Mega Drive. That would be a comfortable statement for me right there. I mean, people are raving about time tracks and so on. I think this is the real deal, especially because this actually made it to stores, first of all, and second of all because I could have picked any track from that game, to be honest. The whole score is a masterpiece, and so are most other scores done by the two. I mean, two of the most accomplished video game musicians of all time, and they're still working together. To this day, these two people are working together on game soundtracks. I mean, if their work didn't bear fruits and wasn't of exceptional quality, then this would not be the case. Anyway, coming on to my personal involvement here, I'd like to think that I am known in the homebrew scene, especially homebrew coding / music scene, Sega Mega Drive scene, demo scene. That's my fields of activity. I wrote a couple of game soundtracks for homebrew games. For example, Project MD on the Mega Drive. I wrote the soundtrack for that and also co-authored the sound driver. And my involvement in VGMRips in particular is that I hosted the website for the first 3 or 4 years. I helped here and there with administrative tasks, and I've been on board since the start. Basically, I was with the idea when Nineko first expressed it to create a website like this, and I thought it was a brilliant idea. I mean, there's Project 2612, okay, which was, I don't know, rather inactive at the time, and I thought, this has great potential. We should probably do something like this, especially with the Valley Bell on board, who's modifying tons and tons of emulators to support VGM logging, expanding the VGM format to support so many additional synthesizer chips and sample chips and whatnot. Really taking control of the VGM format and sort of making this a hub for the VGM format. Making this the central place where you would go to find resources, game soundtracks, and so on and so forth. I am not a web developer by any means, so I couldn't help on that front, but I really wanted to do everything I could, so I hosted the server here in my own apartment, and that was a bit problematic because the site grew around 2013, 2014. The site grew so rapidly that I actually had it influencing my home internet connection. Like, I was hosting this on my home connection, and here the traffic was building up so fast that sometimes I would lag out in games, I'd have timeouts, I'd have, my internet would be unusable at times, and people would complain, hey, the site's kind of slow and sluggish, what's going on? So, at some point I just decided, okay, this is all I can do here, guys. I've put money into this thing, I've upgraded the server again and again, and now my capacities are just, over, okay? So I had to decide to Vampy the Frog, and that was it. That's where my involvement in this website ends. I still follow it very actively, and I still am, and to this day I'm amazed at what these people have created, okay? The fact that they actually created a nice website front end to what used to be just a forum, okay, classic Nineko way of thinking, classic PHP BB2, actually expanded it to a modern website where you can actually browse, search, do whatever you want to, and that's just fantastic. I really envy all of these people who have worked on this so far. That's it from me. Peace out.
Awesome. Thank you, Org866, for your submission. That was awesome. A great testimonial, too. I mean,
what a phenomenal track.
Yeah.
God, I swear, Gauntlet 4, he's right. This is just a masterpiece on the Sega Genesis. It really makes the YM2612 shine.
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that you couldn't have almost a better soundtrack on the system.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely the perfect example of how the Genesis sound could be superior to anything. I mean, where there's always been this idea that the Genesis sound is not as great as like the SNES or something like that. And I mean, this just boom, just like those trumpets in this track, just like blow you away.
Right. I love those little echoes that it's like the part where it starts kind of building, that the melody's like kind of building on top of itself. It's like da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And in the background, there's also kind of an echo on each one of those melodic notes. It just kind of hammers into your ear on one side and then the other side. It's just the stereo separation, I think, is really cool for the echoing effect. And great track, great submission. So
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I really loved about this track was it had this start to it that kind of made you feel like this is what the track was going to be like, kind of like MusicFox's track. And then it's just like, nope, and it just blows you away. It just goes, yeah, it just goes way over the top. A very regal, super hard hitting. I mean, that was definitely a treat.
Yeah, this is like the death march that I want to play at my funeral or something. It's so awesome. Anyways, let's get into our next submission. This one's from Code 54.
Hello, I'm Code54 of VGMRips, and that track was the menu theme from Tunnels of Armageddon for the Apple II GS, which was composed by Dorota Braschek and Marcin Gregorchevsky. I picked this track because I've always been fond of it, dating back to my days at the Apple II computing in the 1990s. Although before I dumped it, I never could get it to loop more than a few times before dropping into the game's demo mode. I've been involved in the VGM scene almost since the creation of the format, and I've been a small part of the emulation scene since I first discovered console emulators around 1997. I think the VGM scene is very important. It allows a wider audience to access and appreciate a world of console and arcade music without the hefty requirements of maintaining all that hardware. As the software improves, so does the experience, both for the dumpers and for the listeners.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Code54. Excellent track. You know, it's weird because this is just the menu track, but it does get a little bit more epic as it goes on. Yeah,
it's kind of light in the notes section, but each of those notes has like a very dramatic feel to it. Like this is, a relatively simple track, but it leaves you with this emotional quality to it that like something big is building, and it like kind of builds up to those drums and kind of takes off right before that loop, but it never gets like insane. And when the track is over, you kind of feel like you experience something.
Right. I'm really happy because this is our first Apple II GS track.
Yeah, it is.
On the show. And we've been wanting to do an Apple II GS kind of spotlight. It eventually will happen. But in the meantime, we got this. So that's a good starting point. So, I played this game the other day, actually, because I was curious. Like, I'd never heard of it. And I guess it's also out on the Amiga, but I'd never played that version either. So I tried it on the Apple II GS through MAME. And it's a really hard game, for one. You basically have to go through this tunnel of Armageddon. No, I'm just kidding. It's basically you're speed running through this tunnel, and you have to like move left and right. You move the cursor around the mouse, and it's like almost like one of those screensavers where you're like flying through a tunnel, like one of those blocky tunnels. And it's just that over and over, but you have a gun and you can shoot out at obstacles that kind of get in your way. But it's so fast moving, and you only have so much screen real estate to look at that it makes it very, very difficult. So,
I bet.
Yeah, this was a pack that he told me he was working on, but he just hadn't got around to finishing it. So maybe one day we'll see it on the site.
Yeah.
But Code54, if you are unfamiliar, he is basically the person responsible for all of the Foobar 2000 plugins that we have for VGM playback, all sorts of different playback utilities. I think there's dumb format playback and AC3, stuff like that. And he's just really, really kind of nailed all these different plugins. So if you use Foobar 2000, this is your man.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's move on to our next track. James, what do we have?
We have a submission from Tails. So let's listen to that, and we'll be right back.
All right, thank you, Tails. That was field music number 2 from Valna on the PC 8801, and that was in 1989, composed by Manabu Saito. And man, just another cool OPNA track.
Yeah.
Glad we got another one on the show. So Tails wrote some of his thoughts down for us, and he says, "Hello, everybody. This is Tails typing." Typing. So what you've heard is field music from another system SACOM game called Valna. I've never finished making a pack for it because Hoot had some broken tracks which don't loop properly. And that's about it, I guess. Hope I'll be able to talk better online. Greetings to all VGMRips staff, and thank you for listening to this crappy speech. It has all of these square vibratos and reminds me of a Russian chanson from the early 90s somehow.
I could see that. I mean, really cool track.
You know, it's funny because he actually, what he did was he voxed his little sentence there, and he sent over. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Hello everybody, this is Tails typing. So what you hear is field music from another system second game called Volga.
And when my ears started bleeding is when I realized, let's just read this out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tails. No, I fired up this game the other day too, and because I hadn't played it. But I really do like this composer. This is Manabu Saito, and he was a fairly prolific musician who made his name working at System SACOM around the turn of the 90s. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, though, he had died of kidney failure at the age of 22.
Yeah, that's extremely sad. That's a very young age to die at.
God, it's so young. But, I mean, the fact that he did all these soundtracks before the age of 22 is incredible.
Mm-hmm. And the skill level that he has, I mean, you just heard that track. I mean, that was insane.
Yeah, it's really good. He also did Providence and Chatty for the PC-88, and then Euphoria for the X1. And, yeah, I just wish we would have had more time with this composer to hear what he could have accomplished had he, gotten more experience and maybe changed over to other systems,
Yeah, I mean, he was young enough at the time that he could still be composing today.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very excellent track. So we want to say thank you, Tails, so much for your submission, and it was just a wonderful pick. Moving on to our next submission, this one is from Vampy the Frog, or Vampire Frog.
This is Vampy the Frog from VGMRips. You just heard Fate from I chose this song because it felt, really well polished, and it has some nice subtleties to it, like the swelling at the start, and then when the drums kick in, you have like, that's kind of an overused musical trope, but it's done well here, so it doesn't feel overused. And then somewhere in the middle of the song, the key changes, except it doesn't feel like, how do you say, it doesn't feel like you're just changing the key, it feels like you're changing the mode, so it kind of changes the mood of the song. So, the whole, of course, the whole soundtrack from is really nice, but this is one of my favorites. Yeah. So, the way I found VGMRips is I started to do transcriptions of music from some of my favorite Genesis games, and then that's how I got in the VGM format. I wrote a little script that rendered each of the separate channels to a different WAV file, so then from the WAV file I could transcribe the notes by ear, so that way I could more easily extract the chords and the solos and stuff from the songs. And then later on I got more into VGM files, and I found the VGMRips site, which was it was hosted on org 866's server, and back then it was just a forum, so org couldn't host it anymore, and I was around and I said, hey, I can host it, I have a server. And I took it, and then I started hosting it, and then I was looking at the files and I was like, well, these files look they look like they're very consistent, and I could actually make a database from them. So I made a database. I wrote a little importing script, and that I created a database that contained all the info from the packs, and then I made an interface for it so you could browse them, and that's what the packs section, which is the front page and the song page and all that, that's what it is. Basically, you're browsing a database of imported data from the actual packs, and I have planned to have an actual new version of the site where you can upload and edit and do this more properly, but right now it's just we upload the zips through FTP, and then the importer reads all the zips and generates the database, and the database is displayed. So anyways, that's boring, and that's how I got into VGM, and then I hosted it, and now I'm hosting it and developing it, and I really like some of the songs, some of the music in there, because otherwise it would be boring, if it was crappy music and coding, that wouldn't work, but it's good music and coding, so those go well together, Okay.
Awesome, Vampy. Awesome testimonial. Awesome track. Mm-hmm. I mean, we talk about, I think quite a lot on the show. It's a personal favorite of ours, and one of the best, if not the best, PC98 soundtrack around.
Well, I mean, it's like a lot of other PC98 games like Rusty and stuff like that. We're hearing them in more circulation, showing up on other shows. Other people are talking about them, which is really cool to see, that other people are getting excited. But yeah, this soundtrack is so good that, you can't not love it. And this track especially is just it's so good. I don't even know what to say about it. It's that good.
You're like kind of looking around the room like, it's like waiting for a message from God to tell me how good this is. Is one of those other things we've talked about, and we've kind of explained the premise and story and stuff.
We had that on our episode 50 expansion pack. That was when we kind of debuted a track.
That's right. And we talked about it on the Ground Seed episode and stuff too. A phenomenal command of the YM2608, and I don't think it gets much better than that. I mean, there's awesome PC98 music out there, don't get me wrong, but this soundtrack really blends a lot of fast-paced stuff, with grungy stuff, with classical, almost jazzy kind of things, and very euphoric sounding tracks. It's just a sweet package altogether.
Like you said, it's a personal favorite of ours.
Yeah. Vampy, thank you again so much. Really cool to hear you and your experience and how you kind of got into VGMRips and doing all the website, the front end that we are basically using all the time.
Yeah.
So, very cool. Let's move on to our next submission. This is from Valley Bell.
This is Valuable from VGMRips. You just heard Going on an Adventure from High Seas Havoc, composed by Emi Shimizu. I chose this track because it is happy and optimistic, so it fits my general mood. I also like the emphasized rhythm. Flutes, trumpets and strings use playful melodies and everything is in perfect harmony. The song calms down a bit before it loops back, which is also a very nice touch. The music plays during the first level of the game, which has bright, vibrant colors. It's the perfect beginning of an adventure. In general, High Seas Havoc has very beautiful music and manages to do an orchestral soundtrack on the Mega Drive pretty well. Some songs feature references to Final Fantasy IV, which is also pretty nice. The sound driver of this game was also used by lots of unlicensed games, mainly RPGs and fighting games. But despite the often questionable quality of those games, it managed to always sound pretty good. As you might know, I'm one of the main guys on VGMRips, so I thought I could tell you some stories about the origin of VGMRips. Back in 2010, all VGMs that didn't fit on SMS Power and Project 2612 were uploaded to a folder on mediafire.com, a file sharing service. The first pack was Outrun, followed by some Neo Geo Pocket packs. After a while, other people started ripping VGMs from arcade games. Since they were a bit out of place on SMS Power, a user called Tom created VGMRips. He also was responsible for the IRC channel. Back then, the site was hosted by Erk866 on his home server, and I had fun making notes of all the times the site would go down.
Alright, thank you, Valley Bell. That's awesome. Really awesome track.
Yeah, I think he said it best when it was just, bright and fun and happy, and because that's exactly the emotion that I got from it. And then when seeing the game, I felt like it fit perfectly with the look and feel of the game itself.
Yeah, this track is very adventurous and soaring. And the game is really like a Sonic game, in a lot of ways, but it has just these very vibrant colors, and it's just enjoyable. It's just like a feel good, movie, but video game version.
Yeah, gets you smiling, gets your toes tapping, and it is a really cool adventure. It looks like.
Yeah. Now, what's really cool about this game is, and I just showed you this a little while ago, when you start the game, like right from the get-go, when you're on the title screen, there is an option for orchestra mode. And it's so cool because you got the conductor and the orchestra kind of sitting in the background. Every track that you play, he'll have, he'll be tapping his baton at the pace of the track.
Yeah.
So some faster tracks will be like ta 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 ta, and the other ones, like the slower ones, it'll slow down. It's just a really cool, like unnecessary feature that I thought was just totally awesome. Awesome.
I mean, it was so cool. It's the main character from the game, and he's like this little pirate, but he's wearing like a suit, but he's still got his little bandana on, and and like at first I was like, okay, I don't know if I would have noticed it until like maybe like the third or fourth song, when it dramatically changes pace, and you see his arms move in a much different pace than before, and I was like, oh man, that is so cool. Like that is those little touches that make these games so amazing.
Yeah. So Valley Bell, he is the kind of head honcho at VGMRips. He's responsible for, adding VGM logging to a lot of the emulators and maintaining the file format, the best he can. He loves this stuff. You can tell. He really loves game audio. He does, hacking. He just entered a Sonic hacking competition not too long ago where he completely redid the music and first level of Sonic Pocket Advance. He made it all like a Christmas theme, like a winter theme.
Yeah, you showed me that, and I was really amazed.
I think that having somebody who's very passionate about the music, kind of helping lead the community, is a very powerful thing. So we're lucky to have him. But that is our last guest, our last submission to this 5-year anniversary episode. We got one more, and that's from you.
Yeah. So before we get to that, though, we could do a real quick wrap-up of the show. And
Yeah. So we quickly want to say thanks to everybody who submitted a track to us, and everybody who we may have missed. If you got this, the email I sent out late or something and didn't have time, well, then maybe our 10-year anniversary episode.
Yeah.
But so quickly want to give thanks to MaliceX, Crimson1117, CTR, MusicFox, 2CHH, Grauw, Maxim, Org866, Code 54, Tails, Vampy the Frog, and Valley Bell. And also thank you, James. Thank me too.
Yeah, thanks, Bryan. Well, thanks for putting this episode together and wrangling all these people. I mean, I know that couldn't have been too easy.
No, but it was a lot of fun. And a lot of these guys I've been chatting with for years, and I've never actually heard their voice. So it was quite a treat to be able to kind of hear the reason why they pick tracks from their own words, and I think that's pretty cool.
Well, now I'll get the opposite perspective, since now I'll start chatting with these guys and I'll know what they sound like.
Right. So if you want to know more about the show, you can check us out on pixelatedaudio.com for our show notes and our track lists.
We can also be found on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Pixelated Audio.
Yes, and if you guys would like to leave us a review on iTunes or whatever other review place there is, we'd really appreciate it, and kind of brightens up our day. So I appreciate that.
All right, so for my track, like you had said before, I like to pick something that was something I wouldn't have really come across other than on this website. And the way that I liked to do it was I created my account. I save a bunch of tracks I like. Yeah. And so today I went through and picked a track based on the ones that I had favorited. And this track came from a pack from 2016 by Sonic of 8. And when it came out, I decided it was a new pack. I wanted to listen to it and was just blown away. So the track that I have for you guys today is from a game called Mani on the Run, Mani no Doki Doki Daisaso. This is the title screen track from the Famicom Disk System game that was developed and published by Jalico, composed by Kazuo Sawa, originally by Rob Hubbard, so you know it's going to be a very excellent track.
Oh, man, yeah.
So let's give that a listen, and thank you guys for listening, and see you guys in the next episode.
Yeah, and happy birthday, VGMRips.
Yes, happy birthday.
Here's to another 5 more years.